Hey guys, since I didn't get to get on with you today in class to go over these questions like I had planned on it, I wanted to make a video for you and send you this so you could watch it and use these as examples to help you do the rest of the Delta Math assignments that I had put on there. If you still have questions, of course, you can ask me. But if you notice, I took these straight off Delta Math, so the title is actually up here for what quiz or what assignment it correlates with. So you can kind of pause the video as you need to and look at the certain examples that you need to. Okay, so this is evaluating functions, and it says specifically level 1. We've done some like this, but I wanted to make sure that you remembered. Remember I said if there's a number inside those parentheses instead of an x, that means that you're plugging in that number for x. So you're going to use this part of this equation right here, this part of it, it's kind of like an expression. You're going to plug in -2 wherever you see x. Well, in this case, there's already a negative right there. So we're going to put -2, and then -1. So all I'm doing is kind of like evaluating expressions, plugging it in where I see an x. Be careful with these signs because you know minus a negative, that's going to make it a +2. And then you just have 2 minus 1, so your final answer would be 1 on that one. Okay, same thing on this one. Now we've got a 6 in the parentheses in place of the x. So everywhere we see an x in this, we're going to put a 6. So we're going to say 3 times 6 because we know there's multiplication in between there. So 3 times 6 plus 3. We got 3 times 6 is 18. And then 18 plus 3 is 21. So final answer is 21. All right, on this one, this time you're plugging in -4 for x. Again, it's got that negative already in that part. So when we plug it in, we're going to have to put negative, then -4 in place of x, plus 4. All right, don't make the mistake of thinking that's 0 because remember, this minus a negative is going to change it to a positive. So we really have 4 plus 4, which is 8. All right, last example for this type of problem. Again, we have a -2 in the parentheses in place of x. So we're going to say -2 times -2 minus 5. Again, there is multiplication in between there. We have -2 times -2. Watch your signs because that's +4. Also, watch your signs for your final answer because you have 4 minus 5, which gives me a -1. All right, so that's those 4 questions go with the quiz that says evaluating functions level 1. All right, these are going to be for evaluating functions level 2. And really, it's very similar. It's just different functions that you're plugging it into. Some of them have more x in more than one place, so you're going to have to plug it in both of those. But still the same principle as far as plugging in for your variables, that value, and then simplifying everything. So again, we have 3 in the parentheses, which means it's going in place of x. So when I plug it in, I'm going to say -4 times 3 squared plus 4 times 3 minus 4. Okay, so that's what's different about this one. We have more than one x. Obviously, we have a squared term on here, so we have to evaluate it same as we would like order of operations. So in this first part, we're going to have to do the exponent first. So we've got -4 we're leaving. 3 squared is going to give you 9. You can go ahead and clean up the 4 times 3, which is 12, and I'm just going to bring down the -4. So we have multiplication, addition, subtraction. We know we're going to multiply first and get -36 plus 12 minus 4. We're going to simplify left to right since it's addition and subtraction. Now be careful with this. We have a -36 and a +12. So we're actually going to subtract these and get -24. And then we're going to bring down our -4. So your final answer on this one will be -28. Again, watch those signs because those negatives can definitely get you. All right, this one, same thing. It's still evaluating functions level 2. Here's what you're plugging in for x, the -7. So we're going to go here and plug it in. We've got -7 squared minus 20. Now be careful if you're trying to use a calculator to figure out what this is. If you don't put the -7 in parentheses, remember, it will think you're taking the negative of the 7 squared, so it'll make it negative. But what it really means is -7 times -7 which should leave you with positive 49. So if you're typing in your calculator, make sure you put in parentheses around it. All right, then we have minus 20. Okay, we're going to say negative 3 times 49, and that's going to give us negative 147. Bring down your minus 20, and these are the same sign, so they're going to end up adding together and keeping that negative sign, so your answer is going to be negative 167. All right, on this one, we're plugging in positive 7, so we have negative 7 squared minus 3 times 7 plus 3. Now, you have to be careful on these, because remember, in this first one, it's not, the negative's not included in that squared. You're just saying 7 squared. So in this one, it's going to end up negative 49. You bring down your negative, and you square the 7. The last time we were plugging in a negative 7 inside that parentheses, so that makes a difference. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21, and then we have plus 3. All right, so we're going to go left to right, so negative 49 minus 21. That's going to give you negative 70. And then negative 70 plus 3 is going to give you a final answer of negative 67. All right, this is starting another assignment, some examples for the next one. Evaluating functions from a graph. So it's going to depend on what you're given. Now, you've got to make sure, I told you before, you've got to make sure that you know what it's representing. So remember, if you get a number inside the parentheses, if they're giving you that, they're giving you x. Basically they're saying x equals negative 9, okay? So they're asking you on this graph to find the value. When x is negative 9, what is your y value? Because remember, f of x, the whole thing right there, and they kind of point that out right there, that y is equal to the whole thing, f of x. So what you're going to do, let me get a pointer real fast. You're going to go on the x-axis at negative 9, and you're going to say, well, if it's negative, x is negative 9, what was my y value? Where does it hit that graph? And it'll be right here, which is positive 2. Okay? So that's what you have to do every time. Do that one more time. This is telling me that x is negative 9. So I'm going to go to negative 9 on the x-axis and go until I meet the graph. And whatever that y value is, that's my answer. So that's why it's positive 2. All right, on this one, it's the last one was a V-shaped graph, so it's an absolute value graph. We just haven't went over those yet. But this time it's a parabola because it's U-shaped. But it's the same principle. They're giving you f of 3, which is essentially telling you that x equals 3. So they're wanting you to look at x equals 3. So on the x-axis, x equals 3 is right here. And they want you to find what the whole y value is on this graph. So if we're looking at x equals 3, we're going to go up until we hit the graph. So it'll be here. And I look and see what y value that is, and it is positive 5. Okay? So that's all you have to do is go where x equals 3 and go up until you see where it hits that where it hits the graph, excuse me, and then you look at what y value that is, which this one happens to be 5. So your answer on this one is 5. All right, you have another parabola on this one. I know that because it's U-shaped. All right, and again, they're telling me that they want us to find f of negative 2, which is essentially telling me where x is equal to negative 2, what is your y value? So we're going to do that. We're going to go on our graph where x is negative 2. I actually say I'm not going to go up because there's nothing up there. So I'm going to go down until I hit the graph, which is right here, and I'll look across and see what that represents. It's between negative 6 and negative 8, so that means it is negative 7. So that's essentially what you're going to do. Go to x equals negative 2, go until you hit the graph, and then see what y value that is. So here it is negative 7. All right, we have another V-shaped graph. This one says find f of 7. So when x equals negative 7, what's your y value? So you're going to go over to positive 7, and we're going to look. Obviously, we wouldn't go up again because there's no graph here. So we're going to go to 7, and we're going to go down until we hit the graph, which is right here. And then we look at our y value, which is negative 4. Okay, so again, x equals 7. Go down till you hit the graph, and then you look over to see what y value that is. So your answer on this one is negative 4. All right, last example for this assignment, they're giving you f of -6 is another parabola. You're going to go on your x-axis to -6, and we're going to go down until we hit the graph. And we can see if we go over, it's at -3. So again, go to -6 for x, go down till you hit your graph, and look over to your y-axis, and it's between -2 and -4, which means your answer is -3. All right, this last one I have examples for says solve for input of a function given the output. So remember, input means your x value and output means your y value. So what this is saying is you're going to solve and try to find what your x is if you're given what your y is. Well, the main thing we need to remember is that this whole f of x is in place of y, okay? So if they give us this, if they give me f of x equals 7, we're putting that in place of y. It's basically like them saying y equals 7. Okay, so we're going to put that in place of it. Remember, if it's in the parentheses here, then that means it's your x value. If there's a number there, but it's not. You can still see the whole f of x. So again, that's like saying y equals 7, and we're going to put it in place of here. So that's what we're doing first. We're going to substitute 7 in place of that whole f of x. So we're going to put 7 here, and then we're just going to bring this down. Okay, once I do that, then I just have a two-step equation, which you know how to do. We're going to add 3 first. Okay, I'm doing that because I don't have a variable on the left, I only have it on the right, and it's okay with equations. It's more important with inequalities that my variables go on the left. If you if you moved your variable to the left, you could have flip-flopped in the beginning, or you can instead to avoid the negatives, but you're still going to get the same answer either way. So when I simplify this, I get 10 equals 5x, and then my last step would be to divide by 5. So my answer is 2 is equal to x. So all you'll have to put in the answer is 2, positive 2. All right, on this one, they changed it to h of x. But remember, I told you it could be f of x, g of x, h of x. That's the usual ones they use. But remember, this is just going in place of y. It's just how they write functions. So they're telling you to put -4 in place of y. So again, I'm going to plug that in for this whole side. I'm going to write down the rest of it. I'm going to treat it like two-step equations, okay? So again, you can move your variables to the left and your constants to the right if you want to, but since these are two-step equations, you can cut down on the many times you have to move it, since they're just equations, not inequalities, and go ahead and subtract 2 so that your constants are together. And then you'll have your variable there, and then you can just finish out by dividing, and that's going to give you a positive 2. Okay, so you would put positive 2 right there. Okay, 2 more questions on this. It's still going with the same assignment. So again, this one's going to say g of x. So remember I said f of x, g of x, h of x, whatever. It's still going in place of y. So they're telling me to put -10 in place of that. All right, when I do, I'm going to get my variable by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 5 and say -5. I'm going to combine my -10 minus 5, which is going to give me -15. I have -5x on the side, and then I'm going to divide out -5. -15 divided by -5 is going to give us a final of x equals 3, or 3 equals x. So your final answer that you'll put in the blank is just 3. All right, this is the last example. Again, they're going to use h of x. That is in place of y. They're telling me to plug in -8 for that. You plug it in, you simplify your two-step equation. -4, both sides. -12 equals -2x. And then I just divide by -2, and I get +6. So +6 would be your answer on that. So these are for the ones where they're wanting you to solve for x when you're given y. And again, it'll be written in kind of a funky way, f of x, g of x, h of x, but it still means the same thing. All you got to do is plug whatever number they give you into that spot, the whole thing, and then solve your equation, and it will give you x each time. All right, I decided to add one more because I didn't have any examples for this last assignment. So I'm going to do several of these because I think this is probably one of the ones that other ones that are finished with theirs had difficulty with just the way it was asked. So we're going to go through here and we're also going to talk about how you put in these answers if you have multiple answers. All right, so main thing you need to know on this graph, it's input versus output. So sometimes they're going to be giving you input, which is your X. Sometimes they're going to be giving your output, which is Y. And you just have to make sure you look and see which is which. All right, so if this gives you, find the value of f of -4. Remember, if it's inside the parentheses, that means x equals -4. So what you're going to do is go to the graph, just like we did before, and look for -4 on x and go down and see where it hits the graph and look across for what y it represents. So your answer on here is just going to be one of them, because on some of these you'll see there's multiple answers. But for this one, if you go to x equals -4, go down to where you hit the graph and look at what y that represents, the only answer is -5. So you went x is -4, down to the graph, over to look what y it is. So -5 is your answer on this one. All right, now this one's a little bit different because now they're giving me the whole thing. F of x is still intact. There's not a number inside the parentheses. They're saying f of x equals 6. So remember, f of x stands in place of y. So what they're asking to do is go to where y is 6 and look where it hits the graph and go down to your x-axis. So you're kind of doing the backwards of what you did before, because now they're giving you y. Again, still going to see where it hits the graph and then trace down and see where it hits the x-axis. So its x value is 5 on this one. And I think all you have to type in the box that's underneath this. You can't see it on my screen because I took a picture, but you just type in the 5. So again, all I did was go to y equals 6, go over to where it hits the graph, and look down to figure out what the corresponding x value is. That's why x is equal to 5. All right, be really careful on these because it's the same as we did in the last one, because it's giving you f of x again, which again is in place of y. So they're wanting to know what value or values is in this graph for that y is equal to 0. We're wanting to know the x values. Now, down here, I've already added an answer because there are actually 2 answers on this one. I want you to make sure you see, if you have 2 answers, only one box is going to be here originally. See these little plus minus right here? If you need another answer, which you do on this one, and I'll show you why in just a second, but you just have to hit this little plus right here in order to get another answer box that comes up, okay? So I just wanted to make sure you knew that because I had to learn that the first time I started doing these problems. All right, so when y is equal to 0, so y equals 0 means we're on essentially the x-axis, because that's where y equals 0 at the origin and across here. So we can see that it crosses the x-axis in 2 places, and those 2 places are our answers. So at 2 and 4, both positives, you would just type in 2 and 4. So where y equals 0, which is essentially the x-axis, where does it cross it? And that's at 2 and 4. All right, I have 2 more of these. On this one, again, it's saying f of -9, which means it's telling you that x is going to be -9. They want to know your y values. So you're going to go on your x-axis, go over to -9, go down till you hit the graph, and then look what y value that implies. And actually, it ends up being -9 as well. Okay, so when x is -9, y is actually equal to -9. So all I did was go to x equals -9, go down to the graph, look over at your y, and see what it corresponds to. All right, this is really the last one. So I just wanted to make sure you had help on each one since we didn't get to do this in class. So on this one, they're giving us, again, f of x, so we know that's in place of y. So they're saying when y is 4, what are your x values? So we're going to go up the y-axis to 4, and we're going to look and see how many times does it cross that graph. It crosses it twice, once here and once here. So both of those are my answers. So we would put a dot here, and we put a dot here, and we see that the first one has to do with 1, and the second one has to do with 3. So your answers are 1 and 3. Now, if you notice down here, I left this one like this on purpose. You can't put both of your answers in that box because it will count you wrong. So make sure you put 1 in there. And then again, you use this little plus button right here and it will create you another text box and you'll put the 3 in that one. Okay, so 1 plus the plus right here, and then it'll pop you up another box, and then it'll you'll type in the second number and then hit submit. All right, I hope these examples help you. If you still have questions, you let me know. But I just wanted, like I said, I know you're going to be working on these and I didn't want you not to have examples to go by. All right, see you Monday.